Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Outdoor Adventure Hour. I'm your host, Rob Lupo from Lupo Outdoors. And today we're diving into a topic that's crucial for the health of our ecosystems and the protection of our natural resources. We're talking about the importance of hunters and fishermen in the preservation of our wildlife protected lands and waterways. What most people do not understand is the reason why we have these lands protected is that the tax dollars of our hunters, our archers, our fishermen, basically any of your outdoor type hunting gear or fishing gear, the taxes on that go to the preservation um, of of the land area, and we're going to go deeper into that. Um, let's kick things off by setting the stage. When most people think about hunters and fishermen, they picture folks out there in the wild enjoying their sport. But there's so much more to it than that. These activities play a pivotal role in the conservation efforts, often funded by the very participants in these outdoor pursuits, as we discussed. Um, It's so vital that people understand this. There's a lot of organizations out there that would prefer that you don't fish and you don't hunt. It's like, but they have no idea that the monies that fund those lands are paid by us. They're not federal funds. The majority of that money comes from our tax dollars. First up, let's talk the money like we're doing here. You might be surprised to learn that hunters and fishers contribute significantly to the financial resources needed to the wildlife conservation. We're just talking about this right now. It's important. When I mention this to people, um, they're like, no, they're not. And I'm like, yeah. Um, these funds are used to maintain habitats, manage wildlife populations, and protect endangered species. We have a multitude of endangered species here in the US. And the monies that we spend that are taxed on are used to protect those. Um, Restocking of lakes. If there's a problem when we have die off, that money is used to reestablish those areas. Let's dive a little deeper into the specifics. The Pittman-Robertson's Act, enacted in 1937, imposes an excise tax on firearms, ammunition, archery equipment. Since its inception, it's raised billions of dollars for wildlife restoration and hunter education. Billions, not hundreds of thousands, not hundreds of millions, billions of dollars. Um, the hunter education aspect of it is to help make sure that people are safe when they're out there with firearms. Um, the wildlife restoration is the purchasing of lands, the upkeep of those lands, the hiring of rangers to patrol those lands, helps with the anti-poaching process. All of this is included. Excuse me. Similarly, the Dingell-Johnson Act of 1950 applies an excise tax on fishing equipment, motorboat fuel, and funneling those funds into fishery conservation and management projects. So, how does this money get used? States receive funding based on land area and the number of paid hunting and fishing licenses sold. These funds are then matched with state dollars and private donations to create a powerful financial engine for conservation. Excuse me. A little water here. I got a frog in my throat, but it's not a protected frog, so it's okay. All right. So these funds are then matched with state dollars and private donations, as we explained. The projects include habitat restoration, research, wildlife management, and public access improvements. So, roads to get to the lakes, to get to camping grounds, paid for by our tax dollars. Wildlife management, which includes clearing areas for like animal breeding, um, unfortunately, culling, which we'll talk about in segment two. Um, all kinds of factors in that, but also research. So with endangered wildlife, it's imperative that we research them to understand how to protect them. So if they like a specific thing, it's like a koala only likes eucalyptus leaves and certain ones of in that. If we didn't know that, if we're trying to protect the koala, we'd be trying to give them hay and alfalfa, and they wouldn't understand it, and they would die. And that's not good. So let's go into segment two, the importance of herd culling. So let's talk about one of my favorite places, Facebook. I can't even express to you how many times I've been on Facebook and seen people post pictures of famous people on hunting trips in Africa. And the responses are very specific. An asshole, what a bastard, what a prick. Not understanding that you have to cull certain animals when they become rambunctious, which we'll talk about in a minute here. But to hunt these large game animals in Africa cost tremendous amounts. 25,000 and up for most of the species. That money is used specifically to hire more rangers, purchase more land, and fight against poaching. Without this, those animals would just be gone. And the animals that are culled are usually troubled animals like rogue animals, like rogue males that are actually injuring the other members of the herd, um, or injuring people, or won't stay at populated areas, and they have to be put down anyhow. But the funds from these hunters is used to protect everything else. So in nature, balance is key. Without natural predators, some of the animal population can grow unchecked, leading to overgrazing, habitat destruction, and eventually starvation. This is where hunters come in. By participating in regulated hunting seasons, they help manage the animal populations to ensure that there's enough food and habitat for all the species. Here's an example. The wolf population in Alaska had gotten so out of control that they were literally eating baby animals as they're being born, like deer, elk, and moose. So as the mother is helpless giving birth, they were eating the baby as it was coming out and ripping it apart. So many of the wolf population had to be culled to balance out the wolves and the natural habitat. So years ago, there was all, and I'm not sure if it's still being done today, but they were hunting wolves with semi-automatic rifles out of helicopters. And people were like, that's just wrong. You shouldn't do that, blah, blah, blah. Once again, not understanding the situation, right? So as humans, we like to be emotional when we speak of these things without the actual factors involved. Hey, we got Vanessa Kitty here. Hey, Vanessa Kitty. She's one of the fans of our podcast here. Great person. Now, she says, let me bring it up on the screen for you. When I was stationed in Maryland, the government property was overrun by deer. Absolutely. 100%. And then you have a culling situation. So, take deer populations, for example. In areas where natural predators like wolves and mountain lions are scarce or absent, deer, as we just heard from Vanessa, can overpopulate, leading to significant ecological damage. Overgrazing by deer can devastate plant communities, which in turn affects the wildlife that depends on those plants for food and shelter. Let's discuss a real-world example: the management of white-tailed deer population in the United States. Oh, let's see, what else was she saying here? And we'll come back to that. I would regularly get up early and see many deer standing around the barracks. That was February of 81. Yep. So, in regions like the Midwest and the East Coast, regulating hunting is essential to keep the deer population in check. This not only benefits the deer by preventing starvation and disease outbreaks, but also protects forest shrubs and other vegetation. There has to be a proper balance. Hunters are also critical in monitoring, controlling disease such as chronic wasting disease, which is called CWD in deer. Though controlled hunting wildlife agencies can collect data and manage disease outbreaks far more effectively. Let's see, I thought Vanessa Kitty was saying something else, but she's not. So when it comes to culling, that goes also back to what we're talking about in Africa. Someone pays $25,000 to hunt a specific species. It's the specific animals that are targeted for culling. Like we said, rogue, dangerous, sick, ill, so they had to be put down anyway. It better benefits these African plains by charging someone to come from other countries to ethically kill this animal that had to be killed anyhow, instead of having one of the wardens do it. And then that money, I said, is used to hire more wardens, buy more land, protected land, and help fight against poachers. So when someone is paying this, they're actually doing a service that had to be done anyhow. See here, you should use tick and flea spray while out hunting, etc. as well. The disease spread by them can get on you. Very, very true. Incredibly true. So let's move over to segment 3, protecting the protectors, predators, and prey. Another critical aspect of wildlife management involves protecting certain species to maintain ecological balance. Sometimes this means making tough decisions about removing specific protected animals. For instance, in some regions, predator populations like wolves or coyotes can become too large, leading to significant decline in prey animals such as deer and elk. The example in Alaska is such a situation. When prey populations dwindle, it affects the entire food chain. Hunters and wildlife managers work together to monitor these dynamics and make informed decisions about which animals need to be managed more closely. This ensures that no single species dominates, allowing for a healthy, diverse ecosystem where both predators and prey can thrive. Let's consider some real-world case studies where predator management has become crucial for maintaining ecological balance. Case study 1. See what is Vanessa saying real quick. We have had a number of moose in our time these past few years, lots of bear sightings, bobcats, and other species. Absolutely. When I lived in Alaska, it was not uncommon to see moose outside your bedroom window. And like, oh, hi. I had one that when I lived in Alaska, we named George because we wanted to hug him and squeeze him and call him George. Yeah. All right, so let's look at case study number 1. Yellowstone National Park. Wolf reintroduction. In the mid-1990s, wolves were reintroduced to Yellowstone National Park after being absent for nearly 70 years. Initially, their absence had led to overpopulation of elk, which overgrazed and the park vegetation. This had a catastrophic effect on the ecosystem, negatively impacting other species that depended on the plants. After the wolves were reintroduced, they naturally controlled the elk population. This led to a remarkable recovery of the park vegetation, including willow and aspen trees. The reinsurgence of these plants provided better habitats for beavers, which in turn created ponds that benefited fish, amphibians, and birds. This case illustrated how managing a predator population can restore balance and biodiversity in an ecosystem. So if you are an ecologist, you're a nature lover, you really need to be saying thank you to the hunter and fishermen because they're the ones out there maintaining the balance in those parks and those areas. Let's look at another case study. Isle Royale National Park, wolf and moose dynamics. Isle Royale National Park in Michigan is home to a long-term study of predator-prey dynamics involving wolves and moose. The park's isolated nature allows for a unique examination of these relationships without human interference. Over the decades, researchers have observed that the fluctuation in wolf and moose populations and the impact to the local ecosystem. When wolf numbers decline due to disease or inbreeding, the wolf population scoured, leading to browsing of vegetation. This not only affected plant life, but also other species dependent on those plants, as we discussed before. This is a normal operation. To address this, wildlife managers decided to introduce new wolves to the island to bolster the population and restore the balance. The ongoing study highlights the importance of predator management in maintaining the ecological health. Let's look at another case study. Case study 3, suburban coyote management, Chicago, Illinois. In urban and suburban areas like Chicago, oh, hey, Ricardo. Let me say hi to Ricardo here. Let's show you what he has. Here in Victoria, Texas, they just started hunting and fishing classes for teens. That's fantastic. I think it's imperative that you teach young and mature teens gun safety, archery, hunting, and fishing. Get them outside, away from their electronics, and allow them to thrive out there. It's kind of important. It's actually very important. Thanks for bringing that up, Ricardo. So let's look at the case study 3. In urban and suburban areas like Chicago, coyotes have adapted remarkably well, often leading to conflicts with humans and pets. However, they also play a critical role in controlling populations of small predators as raccoons and rodents. This is in turn benefit bird populations by reducing nest predators. I always had one, maybe rather vanished. The Cook County first day Newton, sorry. The Cook County Coyote Project, say that 3 times fast, studied the behavior, the ecology of coyotes in the Chicago metropolitan area. By understanding their habits and movements, wildlife managers can implement strategies to minimize human-coyote conflicts while maintaining an ecological benefits for the coyotes provide. For example, public education campaigns on how to coexist with coyotes has been crucial in reducing unnecessary culling and promoting a balanced urban ecosystem. So just because the coyotes have entered the area doesn't necessarily mean they have to be culled. They do have a service, keeping that rat population down. That's vital for spreading disease. Thank you, Ricardo. He goes, thumbs up. Wildlife managers have also focused on public education and reduce food attractants that draw bears. Oh, wait, sorry, wrong area. Case study 4, bear management in the Great Smoky Mountains. So I'm missing part of my script here. The Great Smoky Mountains National Park is home to a significant population of black bears. Remember, if it's a black bear, you fight back. If it's a grizzly, you pretend you're dead. We'll talk about that in a future video, but it's vital. Look at my shorts on Lupo Outdoors. I've talked about black bears a lot. Managing these bears is essential to prevent overpopulation, which can lead to increased human-bear conflicts and ecological imbalance. The park employs various strategies, including regulated hunting outside park boundaries and the relocation of problem bears. So just because an animal is a problem doesn't always mean it gets culled. And that's kind of important to keep in the back of your mind. As we were talking about earlier, wildlife managers also focus on public education to reduce food attractants that draw the bears into human areas. By managing the bear population and educating the public, the park helps maintain a healthy balance between bear and their environment, ensuring that both bears and humans can coexist peacefully. This is to a point. Not all bears, and I have experience with this. A lot of people goes, if you leave them alone, they'll leave you alone, and that is not true. Not always. I know of a multitude of different cases, especially in Alaska, where bears have flat out attacked people with no provocation whatsoever. So it's great in theory, but you should always be prepared. Segment 4, the broader impact on ecosystems. Let's not forget the broader impact hunters and fishermen have on entire ecosystems. Beyond the managing specific animal populations, these outdoor enthusiasts contribute to habitat restoration projects. For example, wetland restoration is often funded by hunting and fishing licenses and taxes. These projects are vital for many species, including migratory birds, because I can speak English, amphibians, and even fish. Healthy wetlands filter water, reduce flooding, and provide critical breeding grounds for wildlife. By supporting these initiatives, hunters and fishermen play a direct role in preserving the natural landscapes and countless species depend on. We'll look at some of these success stories, such as the North American Wetlands Conservation Act, which is the NAWCA, which has funded thousands of wetland projects benefiting hundreds of species. These efforts have not only improved wildlife habitats, but also enhanced water quality and provided recreational opportunities for the public. We'll also discuss the importance of preserving aquatic ecosystems. Fishermen contribute to the conservation of rivers, lakes, and coastal areas by participating in habitat improvement projects, removing invasive species, and supporting substantial fishing practices. Before we move on to our next segment, if you're enjoying this deep dive into the role of hunters and fishermen in conservation, make sure you hit that subscribe button. You'll get notified every time we release a new episode, packed with fascinating insights and stories from the great outdoors. And it helps our channel on YouTube. All right, let's talk about segment 5, community involvement and education. Finally, let's talk about the community aspect. Hunters and fishermen are often deeply connected to the lands, waters they explore. They form local clubs, organizations that advocate for the conservation, educating new hunters and anglers, and participating in cleanup and restoration projects. These communities foster a sense of responsibility and stewardship for the natural resources. Educational programs are often funded by conservation dollars, teach substantial practices and the importance of respecting the wildlife. By passing on this knowledge, we ensure that future generations will continue to value and protect our natural world. Let's highlight some organizations making a difference, like Ducks Unlimited, Trout Unlimited, and local hunting and fishing clubs. These groups organize events, conduct educational seminars, and participate in hands-on conservation efforts. Many of these clubs spend days and days and weeks and months walking through the area, picking up other people's garbage. No pay. In fact, they pay. Their work ensures that other natural habitats are protected and that new generations of hunters and anglers are informed and responsible. Let's talk about segment 6, the role of high fee hunting in Africa. We touched base on that near the beginning, but let's go into more of a deeper dive. Before we wrap up, let's address a topic that often sparked intense debate: the hunting of protected and endangered animals in Africa for very high fees. At first glance, it might seem counterintuitive to hunt animals that are protected or endangered. But when managed properly, this practice can be crucial for conservation efforts and the survival of these species. High fee hunting, often refers to as trophy hunting, involves wealthy hunters paying substantial amounts of legally hunt specific animals. The fees for these hunts can be extraordinarily high. I've seen 25 grand up to 250 grand. Sometimes reaching tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. But where does the money go? And how does it help the conservation? Funding for conservation programs, the substantial fees generated from trophy hunting are typically funneled directly into conservation programs. These funds are used for various critical activities such as anti-poaching efforts. Poaching is a significant threat to many species in Africa. The money from hunting license helps fund anti-poaching units, providing them with the resources they need to protect wildlife from illegal hunters. Habitat protection and restoration. Conservation areas require specific financial resources to maintain. Hunting fees help pay for the management and restoration of these habitats, ensuring that all wildlife, not just the hunted species, benefits from well-maintained environment. Community development. Local communities often receive a share of the hunting revenue. This money can be used for building schools, improving healthcare, and providing other essential services. When communities benefit from conservation, they have a vested interest in protecting the wildlife. How many of you actually thought about that? Population control and genetic diversity. I want you to think about that. In some cases, hunting can play a role in managing animal populations and maintaining the genetic diversity. For example, removing problem animals. Some animals become problematic either by threatening human settlement or by disrupting the balance within the species. Controlled hunting allows for the removal of these individuals in a way that benefits the overall population. Reducing inbreeding. In small, isolated populations, inbreeding can become a significant issue. Selective hunting can help manage this population by ensuring that genetic diversity is maintained, which is vital for the long-term health of the species. Let's talk about some case studies and examples. Nimbalia's community-based conservation. In Nimbalia, they established a communal conservations that allow local communities to manage and benefit from wildlife resources. Trophy hunting and these conservancies generate significant revenue, which is reinvested into the conservation and community development. This model has been highly successful in increasing wildlife populations and improving the livelihood of local people. The Bubya Valley Conservation in Zimbabwe. This conservation has used funds from trophy hunting to support one of the largest populations of black rhinos in Africa. The revenue has been crucial in funding anti-poaching efforts and habitat management, making it a sanctuary for a wide range of species. The Campfire Program also at Zimbabwe. The Communal Areas Management Program for Indigenous Resources, which is Campfire, allows for rural communities to benefit directly from wildlife resources. Trophy hunting revenues are used to fund community projects and conservation efforts, demonstrating how hunting can incentivize local people to protect their own wildlife. If you find this discussion on high-fee hunting in Africa fascinating and want to learn more about similar conservation topics, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Stay tuned with our latest episodes and join us as we're exploring the complexity of wildlife conservation. While the idea of hunting protected or endangered animals might be controversial, to say the least, when done ethically and scientifically, it provides critical funding and management tools for conservation. It's a reminder that conservation is complex and requires a variety of strategies to be effective. And there you have it. A comprehensive look of how hunters and fishermen are vital to the preservation of our wildlife and natural habitats. From funding conservation efforts to maintaining ecological balances, their contributions are invaluable. Remember, the next time you see someone heading out with a fishing rod or hunting rifle, they're not just enjoying their pastime, they're playing a crucial role in conservation. Thanks for tuning into the Great Outdoor Adventure Hour. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment. We want to know what you think, and share this episode with your friends. Until next time, keep exploring, stay safe, and cherish the great outdoors. I'd like to thank my friends for joining our podcast today. Love to hear what you guys think about it, and we'll see you next week.